All right, so today we're diving deep into data analysis.
Ooh, data
Yeah,
analysis.
it's something that pops up on pretty much every exam syllabus I can think of,
Right.
and I think is a really valuable skill, whether you are trying to just understand information better
Yeah,
or just make better decisions in your life.
absolutely.
So it's kind of like having a secret weapon.
Yeah.
Once you really know how to use data.
I like that a secret weapon, it is a secret weapon
Yeah.
because think about it, you're bombarded with information all the time.
Yeah, constantly.
So news articles, social media,
Yeah,
even just like, your friend is telling you about something,
yeah.
a new diet or something,
Yeah.
and being able to analyze the data yourself will help you to cut through the noise
Yeah.
and get to the truth.
Yeah, and I think it can feel very overwhelming when you first start to think about data analysis,
Sure.
especially like, on an exam, you see all those formulas and things like that. But I think it's more about building a mindset rather than just memorizing a bunch of formulas.
Oh, absolutely. I think
Yeah.
it's all about critical thinking
Yeah.
and, understanding the basics.
Okay, so let's start with the basics then.
All right.
What are the different types of data that we might be looking at?
So there are two main types of data, qualitative data and quantitative data.
Okay, so qualitative data is like descriptive data, right?
That's right. Think about words.
Okay.
So if you were to interview a bunch of students
Yeah.
about their study habits,
Okay.
and then you had all of those transcripts,
Right.
those would be qualitative data.
Okay, so it's all about the details and like personal experiences and things like that.
Exactly. It gives you that rich detail.
Okay.
But of course, it can be challenging.
Yeah, because you've got all those pages and pages of transcripts and interview data.
Exactly. How do you actually make sense of it all?
Well, that's where I think coding comes in, right?
Exactly.
So it's kind of like when you're reading a textbook and you highlight the important parts.
That's a great way to think about it.
Yeah, so you're looking for the key themes and patterns, and you come up with a system to kind of categorize and label
Yeah,
everything.
exactly.
So, for example, with the student interviews we were talking about,
Right.
you might start to see a pattern of students saying they struggle with procrastination,
Yes, very common.
or maybe they say they feel overwhelmed with the amount of material.
Absolutely.
And those would be some of your initial codes.
Exactly. And as you go through more and more of those interviews, you'll find those codes popping up again and again.
Right.
And then you can start grouping them.
Into like broader categories.
Yeah, exactly. Like organizing files on a computer.
Right.
So maybe time management becomes a category
Okay.
with subcodes like procrastination or scheduling difficulties.
This is making me think of those crime shows where they have a big board
Yes.
with all the photos and the red string connecting everything.
Exactly. You're looking for those connections,
Right.
for those aha moments.
Yeah, where you're like, oh, these things are actually related in some way.
Exactly. They're telling a bigger story.
Okay, so I'm seeing these patterns, I'm building my categories,
Right.
and ultimately I'm trying to draw some conclusions from this qualitative data.
Yes.
But like, how do I actually approach that? Are there different methods or different ways to think about it?
Great question. So there are two main approaches. We have deductive analysis
Okay.
and inductive analysis.
Okay, so deductive analysis is kind of like you have a hypothesis
Exactly.
and you're testing it.
That's right.
So for example, students who use Grade Guru score higher on their exams.
Okay. Good example.
That would be my hypothesis.
Yes.
And then I'm going to look at the data and see if it actually supports that.
Yeah. So you're looking for evidence
Right.
to support or maybe refute that theory.
Okay, and inductive is a little bit different.
Yeah. Inductive is more exploratory.
Okay.
So you go in with an open mind.
Yeah.
You let the data guide you.
Yeah.
And then you see what patterns and theories emerge.
Okay, so it's a little bit more like a journey of discovery.
Exactly. And sometimes the most exciting findings come from that kind of approach.
Right, because you're not limiting yourself
That's right.
to a specific hypothesis. You're kind of letting the data lead you.
Exactly.
Okay, I love that. So we've talked about qualitative data,
Yes.
but now I think we should move on to the one that I think trips a lot of people up,
Okay.
which is quantitative data.
Yes. The numbers.
The numbers.
Yeah.
All the statistics.
I hear you.
Everyone's
Uh,
favorite.
A lot of people are intimidated by numbers.
Yeah, they can be a little scary.
But remember, they're just tools.
Okay.
They help us to understand those patterns and relationships.
Yep.
And just like with qualitative data, there are steps you can follow
Okay.
to make the analysis process much clearer.
All right, I'm ready for these steps.
All right, so first things first, you have to prepare the data.
Okay, so this is like getting all of your ingredients ready before you start baking.
Exactly. You can have the best tools in the world,
Yeah.
but if your data is a mess, Right.
your results will be meaningless.
It's like trying to bake a cake with like flour and eggshells everywhere.
Exactly. It's a recipe for disaster.
Okay, so data preparation is all about making sure that it's clean and organized.
Yes, making sure that it's ready to be analyzed.
Okay, so once we have our data prepped,
Then we get to the fun part,
yeah, the analysis.
the analysis.
So what does that look like?
So we start with what's called descriptive analysis,
Okay.
which is basically just describing your data.
Okay.
So, what's the average? What's the range?
Okay, so I'm just getting like a general overview of what the data is telling me.
Exactly.
Okay.
Once you have that solid foundation,
Yes.
then you can move on to what's called inferential analysis.
Okay.
And that's where you use those statistical methods
Right.
to actually test hypotheses and draw conclusions.
Okay, so this is where we start to get a little bit more complex.
It can be,
Yeah.
but the key here is to understand that each statistical method
Yeah.
is designed to answer a specific type of question.
Think of it like tools in a toolbox.
Right, you wouldn't use a hammer to screw in a screw.
Exactly.
Okay, so what are some of those common tools that we should be familiar with?
So one that comes up a lot is correlation analysis.
Okay, correlation.
Yeah, and that tells you if two variables are related.
Okay.
So for example, do study hours and exam scores tend to move together.
Right, so if you study more, you're more likely to get a higher score.
Exactly. It's a great way to spot those connections.
Okay, there's always a but.
There's always a but just because two things are correlated,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that one causes the other.
This is the ice cream and the drowning example, right?
Exactly, the classic example.
Where they both go up in the summertime,
Right?
but obviously ice cream doesn't cause drowning.
Exactly. So there might be a third hidden variable.
Yeah, like hot weather.
Exactly.
That's driving both of those things.
That's right. So correlation does not equal causation.
We need to remember that.
Yes, very important.
So correlation is one tool. What are some others?
Yeah. Another one is the p-test,
Okay.
and that lets you compare the averages of two groups.
Okay.
So let's say you want to know if students who use Grade Guru score higher on exams than students who don't.
Right.
A t-test could help you figure that out.
So it's not just about looking at the numbers and being like, oh, this group
Mm.
seems higher.
No, it tells you if that difference is statistically significant.
Okay, so there's like a mathematical way to determine.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So we've got correlation, we've got t-tests, what else?
Then we have ANOVA,
ANOVA.
which is like a souped-up t-test. You can use it to compare more than two groups.
Okay.
So let's say you're testing 3 different study methods
Yeah.
to see which one leads to the highest scores.
Okay,
ANOVA would be the way to go.
gotcha. So we've got correlation for relationships, t-tests for 2 groups, ANOVA for multiple groups.
You got it.
What about if we want to see if something actually causes something else?
Good question for that. We have regression analysis.
Regression, okay.
And that is a really powerful tool. It lets you see how changes in one variable predict changes in another.
Okay.
And more importantly, it can help you to figure out if the relationship is actually causal.
So for example, if I want to know if study time actually causes exam scores to go up.
Exactly. You can use regression analysis.
Also, okay, so we've got a lot of tools here.
We do.
That's a lot to take in.
It is a lot to take in, but remember, you don't have to memorize every single method.
Okay, that makes me feel better.
Focus on understanding the logic behind each one.
Okay.
What does it do?
Yeah.
What kind of data does it work?
Right.
What questions does it answer?
And I guess also what are the limitations,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Because no tool is perfect.
No tool is perfect.
Okay, that makes me feel a lot better. So it's more about the concepts
Yes.
than like the nitty-gritty details.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
I like that. So is there anything else that we need to cover in terms of like the basic tools or?
Yeah, so there's one more that I want to mention.
Okay, hit me.
It's called factor analysis.
Factor now.
And this one's a little bit more complex,
Okay.
but it's all about finding hidden patterns in your data.
Okay, hidden patterns. That sounds kind of cool.
It is cool.
Yeah.
So imagine you're studying student learning styles.
Okay.
You have data on their study habits, their preferred environments, their personality traits,
Right.
all sorts of information.
Okay.
Factor analysis can help you to uncover clusters or factors
Okay.
that group those variables together.
So it's like finding those secret connections
Yes.
between things that might seem unrelated at first.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like piecing together a puzzle.
Yeah.
Suddenly all those random pieces fit together to reveal a bigger picture.
I love that. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've talked about qualitative data. We've talked about quantitative data.
Yes.
We talked about all sorts of different methods.
It's a lot.
Yeah, my brain is like doing bicep curls right now.
That's good. That's what we want.
Feeling the burn.
That's right.
but I feel like I'm understanding it a lot better
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
than I did before. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And I think, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
It is.
Right.
There's so much more to learn about data analysis.
Yeah.
But this will give you a good foundation,
Okay.
especially for those exams.
Speaking of exams,
Yes.
we have to remind everyone that this deep dive is brought to you by Grade Guru,
Absolutely.
who have tons of practice exams and resources to help you really solidify
Yes.
all of these concepts.
Practice is key.
Yeah, and you can find all of that at gradeguru.nl.
Absolutely.
So definitely check that out.
We won't regret it.
Yeah. So we've covered like the what of data analysis.
Yes.
The different types, the different methods.
Right.
But I think now we need to talk about the how,
Okay, the how.
like how to actually apply all this stuff.
Yes. Let's get practical.
Especially in the context of an exam
Absolutely.
where the pressure's on.
That's right. Let's do it. Let's get practical.
Okay. So we've covered a lot, types of data methods.
Yeah.
A lot of information.
I feel like my brain is already full.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
But I'm curious, for our listeners out there, what are some of the things that are really resonating with them
Yeah. What are they finding most helpful?
so far?
Well, I think for me,
Yeah.
what's really sticking out is this idea of data analysis as like a mindset.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just about memorizing formulas and techniques.
Right.
It's about being curious,
Yes.
asking critical questions,
I love that.
and not just accepting
Yeah.
everything you see.
Right. It's like building that BS detector.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're not just passively taking in information.
Right.
You're actively engaging with it.
Yeah.
You're dissecting it. You're figuring out if it actually makes sense.
Yeah. And I think that's such a valuable skill.
Oh, absolutely.
Not just for exams,
Yeah.
but for life in general.
It really is. I mean, think about all the decisions you make every day.
Constantly.
What to buy, what to believe, where to invest your time.
And having these data analysis skills can really empower you.
Right, to make better decisions.
Exactly.
So it's really about like navigating the world
Yes.
with a more discerning eye.
I love that.
Yeah. But of course, we can't forget about those exams because
Right.
that's why a lot of people are here listening.
That's true.
So let's talk about how to actually apply all of this knowledge to those tricky test questions.
Okay, let's do it.
I know one thing that I always struggle with is remembering when to use which statistical test.
Yeah, that's a common one.
It's like I understand the concepts,
Right.
but then I see the question
Yeah,
and I just freeze up.
I hear you. And honestly, just memorizing definitions is not going to help you.
Right.
What you really need to do is understand the logic
Okay.
behind each method.
Okay, so like what it's designed to do.
Exactly. What kind of data does it work with?
Yeah.
What kind of question is it trying to answer?
Okay, so it's more about connecting the method to the scenario.
That's-
So if I see a question about comparing the average scores of two groups, I should immediately think t-test.
Bingo.
Okay.
Or if you're asked to look at the relationship between two variables,
Yeah.
correlation analysis would be the way to go.
Okay.
So practice applying these methods
Right.
to different types of problems.
Yeah. Luckily, Grade Guru has a bunch of practice exams
I do.
that people can use to really
Yeah, get comfortable.
get comfortable with these concepts. And you can find all of that at gradeguru.nl.
Absolutely. And don't forget about that full summary.
Oh, yes, the summary.
It's a lifesaver
It really is.
for just quickly reviewing all those key concepts and formulas.
Okay, so practice is key. But even with practice, sometimes those exam questions can be really tricky.
They can.
So do you have any tips for tackling those tougher questions?
I do. One thing I always tell my students is to pay attention to the wording
Okay.
of the question.
It's a wording, okay.
Because often there are little clues hidden in the language
Okay.
that can point you in the right direction.
Okay, so can you give me an example?
Sure. Let's say you see a question that talks about the association between two variables.
Okay. Associated.
That word association is a clue
Okay.
that they're probably looking for a correlational analysis,
Oh, okay.
not a causal one.
Interesting. So it's about being a word detective,
Exactly.
looking for those keywords
Yes.
that tell you what method to use.
Exactly. Another tip is to visualize the data.
Okay.
If you can.
Visualize.
Yeah. Can you draw a quick scatter plot?
Oh,
Or imagine a bar chart
right.
that represents the data?
Okay.
It can often help you to see the relationships more clearly.
Right. So if you're a visual learner like me,
Exactly.
that can be really helpful.
It can be.
Okay, so we've got word detective, we've got visualizing the data. Any other tips for avoiding those common pitfalls?
Yes. Another mistake I see students making is rushing through the calculations.
Yeah.
without really understanding what they're doing.
Right.
Remember, it's not just about plugging numbers into a formula. It's about understanding what those numbers mean
Right.
and interpreting the results.
Okay, so you need to be able to explain why you got the answer you got
Exactly.
and what it means.
And that brings us to another really important point, which is understanding the difference between statistical significance
Okay.
and practical significance.
Ah, yes, that's a good one.
So statistical significance tells you if the result is likely due to chance,
Okay.
but practical significance tells you if the effect is actually meaningful.
Oh, okay. So you could have something that's statistically significant,
Right.
but it might not actually matter in the real world.
Exactly. It might be such a small difference
Yeah.
that it doesn't really change anything.
So always think about the context
Yes.
of the study
Yes.
and whether the findings actually have any implications for, like, real life.
That's the kind of critical thinking that will really impress those examiners.
Oh, yeah. They'll be like, whoa,
Uh-huh.
this student really gets it.
Exactly.
I love that we're talking about this because it's not just about passing an exam.
Right.
It's about becoming a better thinker,
Absolutely.
a better decision maker.
I love that.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes data analysis so valuable.
Yeah.
It's not just a technical skill.
Right. It's a life skill.
It is, yeah. Okay, so we've talked about the practicalities, the exam tips.
Yeah.
But I want to zoom out for a second
Right.
and think about the bigger picture.
Big picture.
Where does data analysis fit into, like, the larger conversation about information and knowledge?
That's a great question, and it's one that I think is becoming increasingly important
Yeah.
because data analysis is everywhere now.
Yeah, it's true.
You see it in healthcare,
Yeah.
finance, marketing, social sciences.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
It's like the language of the future.
I like that.
If you can speak data,
Yeah.
you can understand and influence the world.
That's right. And that's why it's so important to think critically
Yeah.
about how data is being used, who's controlling it,
Right.
what are the potential biases.
Ooh, that's a whole other deep dive.
It is. We could talk about that for hours.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah.
But I think the key takeaway here is that data analysis is not just a technical skill.
No.
It's a way of understanding the world.
Yeah.
It's a way of making better decisions
That's right.
and shaping the future.
I love that.
Wow, we went from exam prep
Yeah.
to, like, existential crisis.
What is the beauty of the deep dive?
I know, it's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we wrap up,
Yeah.
any final words of wisdom for our listeners who might be feeling a little stressed?
Yeah. I would say, first of all, you got this.
You got this.
You've already come so far in your learning journey.
Right.
You have the tools you need to succeed.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Right. Your teachers,
Yeah.
your classmates, grade guru.
Exactly. There are people and resources out there to support you.
Absolutely. And even if you're feeling overwhelmed,
Right.
just remember that these skills are going to be valuable
Yes.
for the rest of your life.
No matter what you do.
It's not just about the exam.
Exactly.
It's about your future.
That's right. So take a deep breath, trust yourself, and get ready to ace those exams.
Wow. I feel like we could just keep talking about this forever.
I know, right?
It's so fascinating.
It is.
But I think we've covered just about everything we can.
Yeah. I think we've hit all the major points.
Yeah. So before we officially wrap up,
Yeah.
let's give one last shout out to our sponsor, Grade Guru,
Absolutely.
who have been so amazing in supporting this deep dive.
Yeah, they're a great resource for students.
And they have so much to offer.
Tons of resources.
Yeah, they've got those practice exams
Yes.
that we talked about, the full summary of all the key concepts.
Which is a lifesaver.
And who knows what else they have over there.
Right. Who knows?
So make sure you head over to gradeguru.nl
Yes. Check them out.
and see everything they have to offer.
You won't regret it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel so much more prepared now
Good.
to tackle not just the exams,
Right?
but just like approaching information in general.
Yeah. It's a valuable skill.
It really is. It's like I've got my data analysis classes on now,
I love that.
and I'm ready to decode the world.
That's the spirit.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we can officially wrap things up.
All right.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have qualitative data, quantitative data, all sorts of methods.
Exam tips, ethical considerations.
It's been a lot,
It has been a lot.
but hopefully you found it helpful
I think so.
and engaging.
Yeah.
And that's really the goal.
Yeah, to make this stuff accessible and interesting.
Exactly, because
Yeah.
it is interesting
It is.
and it's important.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive
Yes, thanks for having me.
into the world of data analysis.
It's been fun.
We hope you learned a few things.
Yes.
And maybe even sparked a passion
Right,
for this amazing field.
absolutely.
So until next time, keep those critical thinking skills sharp Stay curious, and remember,
Yes.
the world is full of data. It's
And
waiting to be decoded.
so go out there and analyze it. Yes. Explore, discover the stories hidden within the numbers,
That's right.
and ace those exams.
You got this.